Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show with the historian John Dodds and our marvelous producer Jason Ruck. I'm Tom Pippins. We are brought to you by Moonlight Graham, Modern Dental Benefits. Moonlight Graham, proud sponsor of the program. Our MVP, as always, is Craig Caston. JD, Lloyd Walton, a part of the incredible history of the Al days as a player. Dr. Lloyd Walton, you've done it again, man. He's amazing.
Well, one of the most popular players in Marquette history with the fans, one of the great point guards, and we have just a really interesting take of him and his education at Marquette and what he looks back finally. Al McGuire, Hank Raymond's, and Rick Majerus.
Here he is, Lloyd Walton.
So I get to Marquette, and I had to sit out my first year, and I went to every practice. And one day, we're walking from our practice to the dorm. And Maurice Lucas, who I knew as another high school All-American that I competed against in high school, we're walking back to the dorm, and he pulls me to the side, and he says, I don't know why they brought you here. We already got 4 good guards. And, you know, Rick was 6'9", this imposing guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a little short guy, and I look him directly in the eye. I said, well, I don't know which one is not going to start, but you better tell William they're not starting because I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I started three straight years. Now, mind you, my Marquette love affair started watching them on TV. One historic game, obviously, is the game against South Carolina when the brawl happened. But before that, maybe the NIT game against Purdue. I fell in love with that, and then I saw Coach McGuire at his basketball camp, and I was like, I hate to use this term, but it was like God walked into the building. I was like, God, I want to be with him. So when I got to Marquette, I just believed, I don't know what other players, I believed we were going to win. I mean, when I say win, I mean we're going to win every year. Not every game, but we're going to win every year. We're going to be one of the best teams in the country. So we got Maurice Lucas, you got Bo Ellis, who Jim Jones and Maurice Lucas came to my house the summer before and says we came down to find Bo because I told Hank Raymond we needed Bo Ellis. So Jim Jones jumps in his car, brings Luke down. They come to my house. Let's go find Bo to convince him to come to Marquette. So we got Bo, we got Luke. We have the mainstay, Marcus Washington. And then another guy I played against in high school, one of the best players I ever played against, was Earl Tatum. And then you had a 6-man, 2 6-men, what I call them. We had Dave Dells from Wisconsin, and then we had Eddie Daniels, who was a high school All-American himself. So we're kind of loaded, but we're kind of competitive because we haven't all been together. So we don't know who's who, what's what, and how we can depend on guys. So we had some rough spots during the course of the year. But one of the things that I was just telling Eddie Daniels about, this is critical. Eddie Daniels was a high school All-American. They gave him a scholarship to go to Indiana. He went there one year, and Bobby Knight was coming in and said he didn't want any parts of that. So he left and he came to Marquette. Here's a guy who never, not one time, did he complain about getting any shots or any playing time. I'm talking about a high school All-American. And he was a 6-man for us. And that kind of like was the vibe, the energy with everybody. I didn't care about shots, man. I wanted us to win as many games and get to the NCAA tournament. Because as an independent, there was a lot of talk about independents are not going to be able to get here like these other teams. So we started off a little bit slow, in my opinion, because we didn't have that necessary chemistry right off the bat. That was built over the course of the season. But I believe when we got to the tournament, we had enough ups and downs that we were a real solid team that could win. And I don't know who we played. I think we might have played Ohio U the first game. And I forgot the kid's name, a left-handed kid who was one of the best players in the country, and he chose Ohio U because he said he wanted to be the big fish in a little pond. Anyway, they also had a future Marquette player, Ulyss Payne. And Ulyss Payne and I, ironically enough, were born the same day. This is a different year. So beating Ohio U was like the beginning. We knew we could do it. We believed we could do it, and we did it. And then I think we faced either Michigan or Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt.
Okay, Jan Van Berlekoff and his son. Well-rounded team, very, very tough team. But I think we handled them pretty good. Now, after every win, there's a level of confidence that you have, right? And you're looking forward to whoever we're going to play next. And I think our next opponent was Michigan. I think they were still coached by Johnny Orr. Their best player was Campy Russell. And Campy was a well-known name in college and in high school when I was coming out. To one of probably the toughest game we had besides losing to North Carolina State when we played Michigan. Nip and tuck. And I'll tell you, I remember all the bad things that happened. And in that game, I think I got fouled with some seconds left and maybe 15, 20 seconds, something like that. And I missed the front end of a one-on-one. I'll never forget it. Anyway, somebody saved us. Okay, somebody saved us. I think we got the ball back. And maybe even Delphin came in. He made 2 free throws. And we walk away with that win. Now we're in the Final Four. Okay? And the thing about it, when you don't really know, like I really didn't know, and I don't think many of our teammates know. Maybe Luke knew and Marcus watched. But it was like, well, we're supposed to be here. What's the big surprise, right? We're a good team. We're the best. We're going to be here. So we go in and we facing now Kansas. Okay, everybody knows about Kansas. Tom Cavisto, I think, was the coach, and he had a son that played on that team. And one of our Chicago rivals, a guy we played with all summer, Donnie Bob Moore, both were considered 1-1. Are the big guys coming out of Chicago, and Norman Cook in the state of Illinois. But I think the first half was a little tough, but we kicked their butts the second half. And I mean, we kicked their butts good. So now our whole thinking is we wanted to hurry up and get dressed, come out, and we wanted to watch the UCLA North Carolina State game. We knew nothing about North Carolina State. There wasn't a person on earth who didn't know anything, who knew nothing about UCLA. Everybody knew UCLA. And our whole idea was that we were going to beat the best team probably for the last 10 years. We were going to play them in the championships and we were going to beat them. We don't know anything about North Carolina State. Next thing you know, we see this guy jumping almost over the rim, and they got this other guy who's almost taller than the rim. Like, what the hell? They wound up winning the game. So now that changes everything because we really don't know anything about North Carolina State. So we got to prepare to play them. And I remember as a young kid, as a sophomore, this is the first time it ever happened. So many people wanted so much from me. And I'll say that from all of us, all the players that were on my team. Everybody wanted something. This is what it's like when you wait. Everybody wants something. Every news outlet, every friend. I mean, I had people calling me at the hotel I hadn't talked to in 10 years. Like, how did you get this number? People wanting tickets. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. But the other part of the craziness was we were playing in Greensboro, right in North Carolina State's backyard. So there was no place that we could go and be identified as Marquette where people said, well, you're going to lose tonight. You're going to lose tomorrow. You're going to lose. But I believe that we played as well as we could play, particularly in the first half. And Coach McGuire, they made a bad call. They made a bad call. That the both blocked the shot. They had never seen anything like it. He jumped up and, blocked the shot. Clearly was not goaltending. And Coach let him have it. I think there's always been this thing about Coach McGuire, particularly when he talked about the NCAA years before, how he snubbed them, went to the NIT, and how he always was able to give referees a piece of his mind. And I think, words travel. You got to watch this guy. He's going to say this and that. And I think referees came in with a preconceived idea about how they needed to handle it. And they teed him up very quickly, right? And that kind of changed the momentum. And he got another I mean, it's that just took us out of the game. And then went on to beat us pretty handily. And they were the better team, particularly the second half of the game. The first half, I thought we were the better team. But my memories of that team will last forever. But it took me 32 years to watch that game on tape.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. The same thing with the championship, with the year that we played Indiana in the regional championship. I mean, it was so smart of the NCAA to put the number one team and number two team in the same region, right? Why not? That's smart. So anyway, I mean, you think about it, how smart did you really have to be, to be able to now 2 years later change it and put a number two team as a number one seed somewhere else. I mean, anyway, so those two experiences, it took me a long time to watch those games. We just believed, man. And like I said, it took us a while to really create and develop our chemistry for that team. Because of me coming from the outside, I never really had played with Marquette. I sat out that first year. You had Bo, who was going to be a freshman. So it took us a little while, and Earl to play for this first time as a starter. It took us a little while to gain the kind of chemistry we needed. But once we got it, we had to be dealt with. We could play in close games. We could knock people down if we needed to, and then we could score when necessary. So it's a team I'll never forget. And the unfortunate part of it is that so many of our team members and our coaches have gone on. That's the thing that probably bothers me more than anything else. When we sat around the table a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and we talked about some of the great things that happened while we were at Marquette, one of the things that was just so evident that was missing were the teammates who have gone on, and then the coaches that have gone on, because we were a real family that stuck together through thick and thin and wanted the best for each other. And to be able to come back and get together 50 years, because we know that was going to be the last time, and I just happened to be traveling and working the 25th year, so I didn't get a chance to be there for that. And this would be the last time we would come together. It was a special, special time. And the love that we had for each other then still existed to this day.
You touched so many people as a player, but then you went beyond that to touch so many people with life skills and the importance of education and getting your master's and doctorate. Would you talk about that and where that motivation came from?
Well, the education part came from my family. My grandmother, who lived to be 96 years of age, she always talked about growing up in the South, growing up in Alabama. And she had to quit school in the third grade to go work in the cotton fields to help support the family. And so she was always talking about how much she loved school, how much she wanted to go to school, continue to go to school. And so I heard that story over and over again. She never understood how you could go to school and be just up ass. She never understood how you could not come home and do some homework. And so always in the back of my mind, I said, man, it keeps resonating with me. I'll have to say this, I hate to say it, but I hated school. I hated school with a passion, man. I was like, man, why am I going to school? Who invented this, man? But in order to play basketball on a team at school, you got to be able to do your schoolwork, you got to pass and do all that stuff. But I didn't like school at all. In fact, I hate to say this, but I'm very transparent. In high school, my senior year, the first quarter, I got 5 Fs, okay? Mm-hmm. And the bad part about it, look, I'm getting everybody's attention like, what? This guy got 5 Fs? But the real bad part about it was that they still allowed me to play, okay? And I remember my my high school coach, Tony Baroni, coming into my classroom and pulling me out and saying, look, and he had a box full of letters from colleges, universities. And he said, all these are yours, but you can't go to any of these schools. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, because you're not qualified academically. And I was like, what? I'm looking, I got Notre Dame, I got all these different schools, man. So I began to think about, okay, whatever happens to me, one thing I know, I'm not going to be able to evade what I need to do in terms of what the requirements are to be able to play basketball, to graduate and do all that stuff. So I did that 1 year at junior college and wanted to get out of there. And I got to Marquette and I was thinking like, okay, now people are telling me the real truth that, hey, this may be the last time you play structured basketball in your life. It's going to be at Marquette. Because nobody knows if you're going to be able to make it to pros. You have all these things against you, your size, this and that. So I began to think about like, okay, what am I going to do with my life when this is over? And I started taking academics a little more serious at that point. And I remember, I get out of Marquette, and I'm 3 or 5 credit hours short, okay? I get drafted by the Bucks. I had to work my butt off, but I remember going by my mom's house that first summer, And I got a call. I walk in the house and Mom says, Coach Raymond's calling. I was like, what's up? He said, just call him. He wants to talk to you. He said, call him. So I called him. He said, hey, you're 5 credit hours short from your degree. Get your so-and-so up here and take care of these credit hours because one day you're going to need them. And I went up to see him. And like he had done so many times, so many years, he had all my classes. He had the 2 classes picked out with the perfect time that would fit my schedule. And I was able to take the classes and get my undergrad degree. I was happy, but I wasn't nearly as happy as my mother and grandmother were. They were far more happier that I got a degree than playing basketball. And going through all of that, I made a decision in my life that my purpose was going to be to help other people achieve an educational level where they can be productive members of society, no matter who they are or where they are. And I was put in position with work, regular work, but with my association with athletes. And that's been my message now for the last 35, 40 years. There's one thing that will never change, and that's the importance of your education, period. It doesn't matter how many home runs you hit, how many touchdowns you throw, how many points you score on the basketball group. There will be nothing more important than to be able to achieve an education at the highest level. And so that had just projected me and guided me to the places that allowed me to be able to talk about that. I created Lifelong Winners 5 years ago because I really wanted athletes to see that there was more to life than just playing the sports that they love to play. There's nothing wrong with that. But who are you besides the sports you play? Where are you going and how are you going to get there? If it's the place that you really want to be, how are you going to sustain it? And all of those questions is answered to me by one thing, and that's your education. You can go wherever you want to go. If you have done what you need to do academically, that's what you're going to be able to do. How are you going to be able to sustain it? Through your education. I see myself right now, so as having a doctorate, I'll always be able to work. Always. There's always somebody wants a doctorate. There's so many schools want you to come and teach a class, and I've done that before. But I want to digress and just see that your education is critical to your success in life. And I believe that with all my heart. And I don't care, again, how well you do in your particular sport. Which also led me to becoming a counselor for the NBA Players Association. It was all academics and what I achieved. I went there with a master's degree, and nobody had a master's degree in the association. Everybody had undergrad degrees and what have you. And again, I was an example that I played at the highest level, and I could achieve some of the things academically that most people couldn't. I won't say couldn't, but hadn't at that point. So I was very, very different in terms of that. And I remember after being there 3 or 4 years, I never thought I was going to be at the association very long. But one thing that happened was that I was like saying to myself, you actually could get a doctorate one day. Now, my responsibility when I first started was guys were still trying to get a degree and going back to school. And I remember calling a university for a player who wanted to continue his education, a collegiate education. And the guy recognized me from playing, and he said, I said to him, I thought about going back to school one day and getting my doctorate. And after our conversation about the player, I said, why don't you apply? And I was like, no, they're not going to accept it. He said, just apply, Lloyd, and see what happens. 3 weeks later, I come home and I get the mail out the mailbox, and I'm like, I'm admitted for a doctorate program, and my heart never beat so fast in my life because there's a saying that says, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. And I got admitted to college, to a university. Now I got to show up every single day. And I told you, remember now, I don't like school. And so I made a decision, man. I was never more serious about my academics than I was when I went into this doctorate program. I got through it. It wasn't easy. I know I struggled. I was up 4 or 5 in the morning, research, writing papers. And I have to say this side note, my wife is very, very smart. Seriously, she's very, very smart. She's 100 times smarter than me. But I convinced her after I got my doctorate that she should get her doctorate. And it was like pulling teeth, but she went back to school and she got her doctorate. But the fun part of it was when I was going through my doctorate, like I said, I'd be up 4 or 5 in the morning and she would pass by the office and say, you still working on that? So when she went for her doctorate, I'd get up at 2 or 3 in the morning. Guess what? Who'd be in there working on their doctorate? It was, I'm like, you aren't finished yet? What are you taking so long? You got to get this together. So out of the tough times, there were some very, very joyous times. And being at that point only the 3rd player in the history of the NBA, 77-year history, to earn a doctorate, that was really, really special. But I'll tell you what was probably one of the most special times other than getting drafted and playing in the NBA was the first time somebody called me Dr. Walton. Oh, my God. The feeling that I got from all the things that I didn't want to do, homework, didn't want to go to class, all those things, now I realize was worth it. And this is what you get when you finally conform to the desires of those who want to be educated. I could not be happier. And certainly my family was more than I could ever imagine how happy they were that I was able to reach that level, because now I can say I played sports at the highest level in NBA, and now I've achieved the highest level academically, getting a doctorate, man. So I always tell people I am blessed beyond what I deserve. I cannot believe the great fortune that has been bestowed upon me. I'm very, very fortunate.
Lloyd, with everything you've accomplished, obviously you have the credentials, both athletically, on the hardwood, and academically. But as I listen to you, and I think of everyone you've touched and will continue to with every breath, my sense is that your gift of connecting with people and your good heart and wanting to put that other person first and help him along or her has been a real key.
Well, I can't remember anything that I've ever accomplished in my life by myself. Absolutely nothing. But I'll tell you this story that's probably the foundation of some of the stuff that I've been able to do. I'm trying to make this pretty quick. It's kind of crazy and I get emotional. Hopefully I won't today. But so I'm at a high school at Chicago Heights, Blue High School, and things are getting kind of violent and crazy. And I was raised by my aunt, uncle, but we had a very tight family that allowed my mother to work 3 jobs. So my mother and my grandmother and aunt decided to send me to a boarding school in North Carolina. Okay. So they sent me to boarding school because things are getting a little violent, a little crazy in the midst of the year. And so I go down there. I hate it with a passion. This rural area, you know, it's a good boarding school, upper middle class African-American school, but I hate it because it's in the country. I don't know anybody. I left all my friends and what have you. So the summer comes and then I go home and I'm trying to convince my mom to allow me to re-enroll in the school right in our neighborhood, Blow High School. And she says no. And she says, well, the reason is because you have 2 classes you have to make up. So you got to go back to the summer school and you got to make those classes up. So I say to her, well, Mom, if I go back to summer school and I get 2 A's, can I come back and re-enroll in Blue? And she knew I couldn't get 2 A's. So she said, of course. Well, that summer I went down there and guess what I did? I got 2 A's. And so I came back and said, Mom, I got my 2 A's. Can I re-enroll in Bloom? She didn't have any choice. She kept her word. I re-enrolled in Bloom. Late September, I'm in the neighborhood at a party. And we're in the basement. And the guy comes downstairs. He says, hey, there's a guy outside looking for you, man. And I see this guy. He's halfway in the shade. He's halfway, the light is on. And he said, you remember me? And I said, yeah, I've seen you around. And he said, I just went to your aunt and uncle's house, and we saw your mom and grandmother. We talked to your mom and grandmother, and we want to give you a scholarship to go to Mount Carmel. And I'm saying, like, Mount Carmel? I don't even know what Mount Carmel is. So he says, come get in the car with me, and we'll go to your aunt and uncle's house. And I was like, well, I don't know you that well. I'll meet you there. And when I got a half a block from there, I knew he had been there because my aunt and uncle were elderly, and the lights were on. I'm like, what is going on? So I walk in. My aunt says, hey, call your mom. So I called the house in Chicago, and my grandmother answers. She says, this is the best thing for you, son. Here's your mother. So my mom gets on the phone. I'm like, well, what's going on? She says, son, I did some research, talked to a lot of people. This is going to be a great opportunity for you, for your life. You're going to get a great education. I still don't know what the hell is going on, but I could hear the coach talking to my uncle in the living room, and he's asking my uncle, do you have any ties? I cannot put this together. I get off the phone with mom, and I walk into the living room, and I see my uncle coming out of the bedroom with a handful of ties. And I'm like, what's going on? He said, yeah, well, first of all, you're going to have to wear a tie every day. A tie? I can't believe this. He said, yeah, and this is a Catholic school. I'm like, Catholic? Oh, my God, I'm a Baptist. I got to wear a tie. And he says to me, he says, it's an all-boys school. I'm saying, wait a minute. I love girls. So I'm going against all these different things that I got to compete with. I could not believe that they would do that to me. This coach picked me up every single day and drove me 25 miles to school and brought me home. It was a defining moment in my life, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And I tell this story because he didn't have to do it. It was one of the most selfless acts that I've ever been a part of. And because of things like that, I've tried to be able to do the same thing for other people.
What a gift it was to have Lloyd Walton on the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show, brought to you by Moonlight Graham, proud sponsor of the program. Craig Caston, thank you. Modern Dental Benefits, Moonlight Graham. John Dodds, as always, you have a terrific website.
We do. Please DVR the show, Channel 24, 9 a.m. on Saturdays. If you miss it or you're out of the area, you can find it archived at our website, MarquetteHoops.com. We also have... they can keep you abreast as to future guests and topics on the show. Just sign up for our free newsletter.
For JD and Jason, I'm Tom. Thanks for joining us on the show, everybody. God bless you, and go Golden Eagles.